Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Carl T. Rowan. As the new director of the United States Information Agency, I have the privilege to present to you a dramatic document of man's continuing search for dignity.
Freedom Now movement, hear me. We are requesting all citizens to move into Washington, to go by plane, by car, bus, any way that you can get there. Walk if necessary. We are pushing jobs, housing, desegregated schools. This is an urgent request. Please join. Go to Washington.
What's up, everyone? I want to welcome everybody to another edition of Bob Understood. I'm Eric Hicks. It's my esteemed co-host.
Delonte Wilkins here. Appreciate the intro.
As always, I appreciate everybody coming in, and listening to us. As always, if you're feeling the content, hit the like and subscribe. This is a movement. This is so much more than just a podcast. This is a movement, man. I represent us, the people. I'm the pulse of the people. You know what I'm saying?
Pulse of the people.
Yeah, that's right, man. We have the Black folks. We have to understand that it's important that we be able to defend ourselves, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just think that as everything stands today, everything is like an attack on Blackness. And it kind of reminds me of a saying that my man Paul Mooney had. It's funny, but it's not, because it's true. And that saying is, everybody want to be a nigga, but don't nobody want to be a nigga. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I just try to give us ways to defend ourselves, because it's a lot of toxicity out there. And when I say toxicity, I mean, people look for different ways to attack Black culture. And there would be no America without Black culture. So I just think that for us, it's important for us to be able to defend ourselves against all of these false narratives. And that's what we aim to do on Bob Understood. And that's what we're going to do every single week. We're going to defend our people, and people that are just good-natured people of all walks, no matter what your race is. If you are a good person, then you understand where we're coming from, and we're defending you too. So it's a movement. So what's going on, man?
Man, it seems like it's a lot going on, as usual. Yeah. Always a lot going on, but what we're going to zero in on is the question, really.
Mm-hmm.
What we talking about? What we zeroing in? Because my mind, a lot of times we going.
Yeah. Well, listen. Today we're going to focus more so on these. It's a lot going on with reparations.
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to understand that there's a lot going on with reparations outside of DC. One of my reparations arguments, it does relate to DC, but it's a lot going on with reparations outside of DC. You got what's going on in St. Louis, and you also have what's going on in Boston. But there's something in DC that happened in the past dealing with reparations, but I want to bring it back to the forefront, because I think it's important, because we focus so much in DC on crime, and we don't but we don't focus on A, what causes crime, and B, as I've said before, what's people's definitions of crime? Because people will argue that the shit that has happened to us, that's not a crime. That's just something that happened in history. It's not a crime. So I want people to understand that we need to broaden the definition for crime, and maybe if we can solve, or we can address some of the crimes, the historic crimes, then maybe, just maybe, and I would bet my life on it, we could get past some of the more contemporary crime. But we keep trying to address contemporary crime without addressing historical crime. So I'm going to talk about that. And I also want to talk about the statement that was made by the dude Shannon Sharp about, I'm sure you saw Cam Newton getting jumped. And there was a whole narrative, that's a big old Negro there, man. That's a big motherfucker.
It like I couldn't tell he got jumped. They said he took down 40 people.
Well, listen, technically he didn't get jumped. It was like he jumped some dudes.
He jumped the 40 people.
One dude jumped some other dudes, but I didn't like the narrative, that surrounded that whole incident. I think that the narrative told me a lot of what I already know about America, but people take narratives and they run with the narratives. And and Shannon Sharpe was one of them. He took a narrative and he ran with it, and he did it to the detriment of Black folks. And I don't want people. I'm not going to allow people to use these incidents and make them a referendum on us, because they're not. So I'm going to make sure that people who tune in here, they're going to understand that when these narratives come up, they're going to have valid points to shut that shit down.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, before we go into that, I don't know if you heard about the incident with the recall efforts with Charles Allen and Breanne Nadeau. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not. Oh, matter of fact, I heard about it. The recall. I didn't hear about Breanne Nadeau. I heard about Charles Allen, but I didn't realize it was coming at Breanne Nadeau as well.
Well, yeah, they were coming at both of them, right? And they were coming at both of them for basically being soft on crime. And I have a whole range of thoughts when it comes to that. And because that's tied in really to today's show, because I think that it all pretty much it all parallels, and I think that it's like the Matrix. Once you start connecting the dots, you just start seeing everything just come.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with I think white supremacy and racism in general, is that it comes at us from so many angles that it's hard for us to just really like to describe it, to define it, and how it affects us, because it comes from so many angles. So over the years, what I've tried to do is I've tried to slow everything down so that people can see those numbers just coming down in front of their face. And when you start seeing that, then you know how to dismantle it, because that's really what it's all about. It's all about dismantling it. But I looked at a video. It was about the efforts to recall them, and I noticed when I looked at the video, right, it was dealing with the people who wanted to recall Charles Allen. And in that video, the residents or the people who live in his ward, what I saw was pretty much in a room, a capacity, it was a capacity crowd, but it was all whites. But they put the sister out at the forefront. They used her as the voice, right? I think her name is April Brown.
Okay.
But they used the sister as the voice, right? And for me, it's a lot of that that's problematic. And I want to unpack it, because I think that I'm a problem solver. I like to solve problems.
Okay.
And like I said, I want us to be able to give people ammunition to combat these narratives, because these narratives, for me, they're part of the problem when people erect false narratives. And just think, it was it was only what, 4 years ago. I was down it, but everywhere you look, right, 4 years ago, in all of these liberal bastions like DC, all you saw on these signs was what? Black Lives Matter. And I'm a firm believer that Black Lives Matter until they don't. And historically they haven't. So I think that for these people, mainly, DC is a liberal city. And I have a complicated relationship with liberals, a very complicated, as I do with conservatives. And I think that Charles Allen and Brianne, they do. What that showed me is that right now the whole narrative in the city is about crime, right? It's about crime. Every time you turn on TV, crime. You know, so, and it's, to me, it's like you start to sensationalize it. So as I'm looking at the narrative, I said, okay, we got this new crime bill coming up, right? And for me, it just brings back all of these memories. So I'm saying to myself, okay, you want to flood out communities again with law enforcement. You say that's to make us safe, okay? So we're going to flood these communities with law enforcement. But on the flip side, I ask this. Maybe if you flooded our communities with equity, then you wouldn't have to flood them with law enforcement. Just maybe. Flood the communities with equity, because everything that they've done so far, and it's not just in DC, but I'm just focusing on DC for the moment, right? They keep coming with topical solutions with deep-rooted problems. And that's something that we're going to talk about in today's show, because you can't keep coming with topical solutions with problems that are deep-rooted. These problems are ingrained in the fabric of who and what America is. And America was founded on crime. And the sad part is that a lot of well-meaning white folks, they don't understand it. They don't understand that America was founded on crime. You have benefited from that crime. That crime has deprived so many generations of people from attaining just a decent living. So I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna paint a picture. I want to paint a picture for people, right? Because I think that I would hope that the so-called liberal citizens, the liberal white citizens of DC, I would hope that eventually that they would tune in, because my thing is this: if you're committed to public safety like you say you are, then I think that you would realize that the starting point would be correcting the historic wrongs that have been committed by, against people who look like us, because it's indisputable that those things were crime. Those things were crimes. That's like, it's beyond dispute. I won't even go down the laundry list of crimes that were committed against us, right? I'm going to touch on them briefly, but it would take me forever to go down the whole list of crimes, from economic to physical to mental, but they're crimes nevertheless. When we think of crimes, we just think of the carjacking and the gun, the people toting guns and the robberies, but all of these things have happened to us though. They've happened, and they've happened, and they've allowed people to create a country, and we've never addressed that. And at some point, we have to. Your hearing today, believe it or not, it's related to this.
Recently, I introduced proposed legislation and have shared it to some members of council. The proposed legislation I aim to address a systematic failure, namely the mass displacement of DC public school graduates. This legislation is called Our Students First Emerging Adult CB Pathway Program. The program aims to provide housing and a pathway to prosperity for emerging adults, particularly those graduating from DC public schools. The reality for many high school graduates in Washington, D.C. is a trajectory towards displacement due to soaring housing costs. Even those returning from college find themselves competing for housing in one of the wealthiest regions in America, oftentimes crushed by the harsh realities of gentrification. I graduated from Dunbar High School in 2008, And over the past decade, I witnessed my peers displaced, locked up, living in shelters, driving Uber and waiting tables, all serving underneath the new incoming residents who secure leadership jobs that should belong to those who know the city the best. As a community organizer, I've volunteered many hours and helped people stay in their homes, dealing with predatory developers here in DC.
Everything that happened in that hearing today is related to everything that we're talking to, you know, and I think that until people start to understand that, of course, it's gonna make people uncomfortable, but I want people to be uncomfortable though.
Mhm.
People need to be uncomfortable because people living in comfort, they don't really see the world that's going on around them. People just existing in bubbles. So I said, you know what? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull out a few stats for people because I want people to understand something, right? And I want first and foremost, you know, for people to understand the power of equity.
Mhm.
Because when you start talking about equity, then Black folks wouldn't have to be exceptional just to make it. Because then every Black person that has made it, they've had to be exceptional. Why can't we just be normal, bruh? Why can't you just be regular Tate and just make it just be a regular Tate? Why you got to be this exceptional guy just to have a decent life? Why? Don't you want to just be regular Tate?
Well,
Wouldn't that be nice?
I'm saying I don't even know what that feel like because I've been an exceptional Tate for so long.
You see what I'm saying? It's a burden, bro. It's a burden that you have to carry.
Uh,
And the burden, I've seen it wear so many people out. You see what I'm saying? Like people, Black folks, when we are 15, 20, we feel like we're 50, 60 years old already
Man,
because we carry the weight of so much, you know, it's so much trauma, the burden of America. Baldwin, you know, James Baldwin, on the day that his father died, right? I never forget, he said something, right?
Mhm.
And I always quote Baldwin because Baldwin is the real, he's the most authentic writer when it comes to describing America that I've ever seen. But he said he discovered something on the day of his father's death. You know what he said he discovered, bro?
Tell me that.
He said on that day, looking around America, he finally discovered, you know, his father was like a bitter, angry Black man, right? And he never understood that angerness, you know, that bitterness, and he never understood that anger. But on the day of his father's funeral, he said that he finally discovered the weight of white America. They weigh a lot because you constantly carrying that shit around with you. You carrying the deliberate and willful ignorance of people around people who just go about their life every day and they don't see anything wrong with this. So I said I wanted to ask people a quick question because I think that when we start talking about recalling these two council members for being quote unquote soft on crime, right? I have thoughts on that, right? And I'm gonna share them thoughts before I wrap this quick take up. But I wanted to share this with people, right? In 2000, as early as what, 2013, 2014, even up to now, right? Did you know that the median income for white households in DC was 81 times greater than that of a Black household? 81.
Hmm.
So you're talking 200, right? 284,000 to 3,500. 81 times. Okay? Now that didn't just happen in a vacuum. Okay? Though that's history and that's policy. Okay? But I won't even stop there though. I won't stop there, right? Home values in DC, right? The home values, right? For Black families. They said that the typical home value in DC for the African American, it was $250,000, right? That was, and that value represented 2/3 the value of the home of white Americans. Now there's a history in that of redlining, of appraisal bias. But those are the things that deprive people of wealth. They deprive people of being able to get certain services in their community, to uplift communities, because the communities, they don't have any kind of real wealth. Okay, so that's another thing, right? The next thing, right? The next thing that I came across was in DC. Dig this: 80% of whites, right? 80% of whites with a high school diploma or less are homeowners, while fewer than 45% of blacks in DC. Not blacks with just with just a high school or college, but just 45% of blacks in general are homeowners, right? And 58% of black households in DC, they don't even own their homes. Okay. So we have to paint these pictures because people need to understand that when you start talking about trying to recall council members, right, for being soft on crime, I sat back and I looked at that room of people that were there, right? And you know what I thought about? Remember recently when they did a poll in DC about how many people in DC were in favor of reparations, and 92% or more of the white population in DC said that they were against it. Well, a lot of those people in that room, they were against it. They were against it. So that means that basically you're pro-crime. You're pro-crime because and I'm not talking about black crime. That's where we differ. I'm talking about historic crimes that are committed every day. See, it makes people uncomfortable when you begin to draw the line of your success and the historic crimes that were committed against black folks. People get uncomfortable. They say, oh, well, I got everything that I got, off of my own merit. But that's not true. It's not true. It's not true. And people want it to be true, but it's not. It is not true. So I want people to understand that if those two council members, right, if they do get recalled, then I'm gonna tell you what I would do. This is what I would do. I would hit the streets, and whoever was elected in their stead, I would start a separate petition to get them recalled. Because at some point we have to stop. We have to stop playing the game. We have to stop playing the game where we think that it's all right for people to disrespect us, or for people to be deliberately and willfully ignorant to what's going on. Like gentrification in DC, it didn't just happen. No. It happened for a reason. You've been fighting the fight forever. You know.
Yeah, we know.
You see what I'm saying?
We know.
When you talk to these older people in DC that have been relocated to PG County, they tell you exactly what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you exactly, they know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it was deliberate.
Yeah.
And it was criminal.
Should have been.
Why? But you never hear about them crimes on the news. They only focus on the crimes that they say, oh, well, these are crimes that black people commit. Okay, well, guess what? I don't like to see crimes that black people commit, but I'm of the belief that if you want to stop the bullshit, the petty crimes in DC, the carjackings and all that, we have to first go back and address the white crime first. We can't continue to ignore that. We can't continue to, we have to address it. At some point, in DC and in America, we're gonna have to address it. And that's something that we'll talk about later. This is what some of these cities are realizing that you have to address this. Now, that brings to mind another point, right? You know Kenyon McDuffie, correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Kenyon McDuffie he presented a reparations bill.
Mm-hmm.
We don't never hear anything about that. Nobody talks about his reparations bill. You never hear peep about it. We sensationalize all kind of crime. But nobody ever talks about the reparations bill that he put in that most of the council members in DC, like, it's just been sitting. It's just been sitting. But I don't see the population in DC wanting to recall any of the council members because no one acted on the reparations bill. No, you want to have people recall because they affect your quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
But what about our quality of life, though? Because it's more than just a carjacking that affect our quality of life. When we get rid of the carjacker, we still got to contend with the racist appraiser. We still got to contend with the lending institution. We still got to contend with the racist labor. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my thing is that at this stage, I'm no longer going to allow you to do that. I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to call you out. The news, I'm going to call out the council members. I'm going to call out the communities. There was a book I read, right? Albert Camus, right? You know what the name of that book was called?
Tell me.
The Rebel.
The Rebel.
The Rebel.
Okay.
And you know what he said in that book? He talked about a slave being whooped by his master, right? And one day the slave got up and the slave said no more. And what he said to his master in no uncertain terms was this: up to this point, yes, but beyond this point, no. No. And that's what we say on Bar Understood.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the launch of our clothing line. Bar Understood. This is not just fashion, this is a movement. Please show your support by the purchasing of our Bar Understood apparel, so that we can continue bring you great content. Thank you in advance for your support.
Pre-Bar Understood? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But post-Bar Understood?
Yeah, no. No. I like that. I like that. Because we moving forward.
Exactly. We have to move forward.
We moving forward. Because we could keep arguing about yesterday all day. But we moving forward today, and we starting with no. We don't agree with what's going on.
We are rejecting these narratives, bro, because I've seen a whole generation of black men, of black girls, black boys. I've seen them wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
And they wasn't wiped out because they was bad people. They're not bad people. I know they're not, because I came from the same community that they came from. So I know they're not bad people.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what America can do to people. I know what your failure to get any kind of meaningful redress, I know what it can do to people. Mm-hmm. So today, while we're addressing reparations, our viewers, they're gonna find out how America, you've given reparations to people before, but every time it comes to us, it's always contentious. So as I wrap this quick take up, I just want people to know that if you're successful at getting Alan and Nadu, I don't know either one of them. But to label them soft on crime, I really don't know. But my thing is this though. I just think that at some point in DC, We have to plant our flag in the ground and say, yes, up to this point, it was cool, but beyond this point, it's no longer cool. So if those 2 council members get recalled, you will see me in the street every day with a petition. With whoever comes into office after them, I will make sure that we get enough signatures to get them recalled as well, because we're done playing. We're not playing games no more. I'm done, bro. I can't, because I think that until we begin to confront the narratives, aggressively confront it, and deconstruct aggressively the narratives, then these people are going to continue to play games. And I'm not playing games no more. Not at this point, because you got daughters. I got a grandchild. And you mean to tell me that well, don't you fear that if they that when they get older, they come out of their house, they get in their car, that a carjacker will come and he'll take their car? Yeah, I fear that. But you know what I also fear? I fear the racist lending institution. I fear the racist appraiser. I fear the racist individual that's in charge of hiring. I fear a failing education system. I fear these things too, because to me, they're equally detrimental to their well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So I fear these things too. But you're not going to make me focus on just somebody that you say is a carjacker, and you just ignore all of these other things over here because they've been here for your historical benefit. Not doing that, bro. Not doing it. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I can't. So that's where I am with that. You know, that's just my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I think that prior to Bar Understood, certain things were allowed to happen. But in this era of Bar Understood, those things will no longer be allowed to happen.
There you go.
And for the DC liberal, the white DC liberal, I want to share some words from, you already know, from my guy, James Baldwin, to wrap this quick take up. But they need to hear these words. And this is what Baldwin said. Baldwin said, in any case, it's not enough to be a liberal, okay? That is something that people have a great deal of difficulty with. But it is not enough to be a liberal, to have the right attitudes, and even to give money to the right causes. You have to know more than that. You have to be prepared to risk more than that. I'm telling you this because I have watched what happened to many of my liberal friends when the civil rights movements was in Alabama, let us say in the Deep South, and they were very indignant. And then I watched what happened imperceptibly but fatally when the same movement moved north to Brooklyn, to Pittsburgh, to Detroit, and New York. And their attitude changed. I really have to put it to you that way, but that is what happened. Their attitudes changed because they began to feel more threatened. And a liberal facade or even a liberal attitude was not enough to deal with the speed with which the movement was moving and the complications of American life as revealed in the fact by the interracial tensions in every major city. And being liberal was no defense against that and no interpretation of that. So to the DC liberal, I want you to understand that your days of comfort are over.
thank you for joining with us on Bar Understood podcast with your host Mr. Eric Hicks and co-host Delonte Wilkins.